we're at the point where there's likely to be some action. And that, as you said, there's a meeting in the White House today.
It's a good time for this discussion, Matthew. A red headline crossing the Bloomberg terminal as we speak. Amazon puts in a last-minute bid to acquire all of TikTok. What do you make of that?
That's fascinating. I mean, to me, that underscores how far we are away from a resolution here. And you're talking about, some indication that a deal could be in place by Saturday. I don't think so. There are so many moving pieces here. And new bids coming in, that the idea that all of this is going to be resolved in 3 days seems pretty fantastic. So I think what you're likely to see is sort of some indication of movement towards a deal, and President Trump again kicking the can down the road. And the only question is anyone going to stand up to that? There was a lot of political courage to advocate for a ban of TikTok last year. There were some votes in Congress that were 50-0 for it. But now President Trump has a warm spot in his heart for TikTok, as he says, and suddenly some of that courage is falling away. So that's going to be the interesting dynamic, is how much lawmakers or maybe TikTok's competitors stand up and say, hey, we have a law on the books here that bans TikTok. Are we going to enforce it or not?
So to that point, I guess I wonder what part of TikTok is still left to be bought. In that, is it just going to be the U.S. stuff, which may not be as valuable, or is it going to also be the technology that kind of sits in China? And if that's the case, how do we get that?
That's sort of the million-dollar question here, because there was a lot of pushback in Congress for the idea that a company tied to China would still have control over the algorithm. And a lot of the solutions you're seeing floated around look a lot like what TikTok was pitching as Project Texas last year, where the U.S. operations would work here, maybe under Oracle or someone else, but the algorithm would still ultimately be controlled by ByteDance. And the question is that the sort of solution that we're talking about here? Because ultimately China and ByteDance need to agree to this. And with Trump kicking the can down the road on this ban, I'm not sure they have a lot of concern. I don't know that the U.S. has a lot of leverage to force them to sell the algorithm. So it seems very likely that we're looking at some sort of solution that keeps that algorithm tied to China, tied to ByteDance. And the question is Congress going to be okay with that now in a way they weren't last year?
I mean, silly question, but there's no indication that ByteDance wants to sell here. So, I mean, an Amazon bid is impressive, but I don't think I've got a seller there, do I?
That's been the problem, through this whole process is ByteDance really willing to sell, and especially the algorithm component here with China needing to bless that. So, yeah, a lot of offers, a lot of talk, but I think we're far from any sort of final resolution here.
So to that point, this goes back to the earlier headline that Paul just broke, that Amazon's putting in that last-minute bid to acquire all of TikTok. This is according to the New York Times. Who else quickly is on the docket to potentially buy?
Yeah, so I mean, you keep seeing Oracle mentioned as a potential bidder. You saw Frank McCourt was on Bloomberg Television earlier, and a number of other names floating around. I don't have great visibility into all those offers. I've heard 4 offers talked about, but I think we'll learn more this afternoon after this meeting as President Trump considers next steps here. But again, a lot of open questions on the law and big questions politically of whether people are going to advocate for the law that was adopted last year.